So in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 foundational steps that a client of mine, Rachel, took to be able to go on and lose 57 pounds in less than 9 months. I believe you can do exactly the same by following these foundational steps. So I'd highly recommend you have a pen and paper handy so you can make some notes as we go along. Now, just in case you're wondering, Rachel wasn't a one-off. She was on my program, but many of the women have gone through my program as well and followed these steps as well. For example, Gaynor, she took off 85 pounds by putting these foundational steps in place. KT went on and lost 42 pounds and became an actual fitness model, beating women who were 10, 15 years younger than her to win an actual award when she lost that weight. And Caroline lost 85 pounds, again, following these foundational steps, putting them in place and then just working on them over a period of time. I'm going to be referring to a client journal that I give all of my clients just to help keep me on track as I go through these 6 steps, because the things that I am going to teach you right now come directly from my program, which is called Coach Me Slim and Trim. So let's dive into step number 1, which is creating your weight loss environment. Now I'm going to give you a couple of simple exercises out of the program that you can start to apply for yourself today. So first of all, most women, when they start on weight loss, typically will approach it from a dietary point of view. That is, they'll look at what they're eating. They'll either look to cut calories, they'll look to reduce fat, they'll look to increase protein, but something of a dietary nature. And I'm sure you're probably very similar. Maybe comment below if that's been your approach in the past. Or maybe you've done a bit of diet, and you've done a bit of exercise as well, but typically it's something external that you would have invested in to get the results that you want. And that's perfectly legitimate, but what I like to do is get my clients to start off working internally, because this is what I believe props everything else up that's external to you. So what did me and Rachel do in our first session, week number 1? Well, as I said, we looked at creating a weight loss environment. One of the first exercises I got her to do was to identify some of her own negative self-talk, the things that were going on in her head. Just because she said she wanted to lose weight, she started having these negative thoughts, like we all do. It's perfectly normal. And within the journal that I gave her, I actually gave her some examples of the type of things that she might be saying to herself, just to sort of try and get her juices flowing and just get her to try and remember what she does say to herself when she's feeling less than positive. And I'll read a couple out for you so you get an idea of the type of things that we typically say to ourselves when we're trying to lose weight and we don't want to do it. So, you must be joking, no way can I do that. How many steps do you want me to do a day? No way can I do that. Sounds like too much like hard work for me. I'll try something else. That typically happens after a few weeks of failure. You think, oh well, I'll do another diet. So I got her to identify what her own personal self-talk was, and she put that in a little box down here. So once I got her to identify that and say, okay, fine, that's how you've been speaking to yourself, what we now need to do is just interrogate that. Is what you are saying to yourself actually based on fact? And in her case, it was something along the lines of, I'll never be able to reduce the amount of alcohol I'm drinking. She liked drinking wine, common for a lot of people, and she liked drinking beer as well. Not so common for women, but that was her thing. So rather than me saying, okay, let's remove that statement and install, I'll never drink wine again, which would be ridiculous. So instead of doing that, first of all, we became aware, or she became aware of the self-talk. Secondly, we interrogated it and said, is that factually correct? And we agreed that no, it wasn't. But what could we replace it with instead? And again, I gave her some examples on the following page of what she could replace it with. But in Rachel's case, it was along the lines of, okay, I'm going to look to reduce my alcoholic consumption. I'm going to look to reduce that down to a level whereby I start to see some results with my weight loss. So what she's doing there is giving herself permission to still be able to drink alcohol, but not setting herself up for failure by saying, I'm never going to drink alcohol again. Because if you do that, and a lot of people try and do this to try and tough it out, when you fail, you come down and you crash and burn big time. You feel like a big failure and you give up quite often. So that was something we did for her internal environment. I then did an exercise for her external environment, and that exercise is based on food, and it's called What Lives in Your Kitchen exercise. And within the journal, there are a couple of columns there. And what I basically got Rachel to do was, in one column, to write down all the foods that she knew, if she ate them and stuck with those foods, and ate only them foods, she would definitely lose weight. Then in the B column, I got her to write down all the food and drink that she knew if she continue to eat that excessively, it would either slow her weight loss down, cause her not to lose weight, or in actual fact cause her to gain more weight. So once you'd established those two columns and what lived in each one of them, I gave her three choices. I said you can either avoid it, the food in the B column, you can get rid of it, or you can exchange it. Now, the best of those three choices are, well, in my opinion, I'd be interested to know what your opinion would be. Comment below what you think the best choice would be. But the choice that she made was to exchange it. And that was a particularly good choice. Why? Because when you make an exchange, that gets integrated into your lifestyle. And that's the choice she made. So that's step number one, looking to change your weight loss environment. Again, I've just shared with you two simple exercises out of the Coach Me Slim and Trim program. But those are two very powerful exercises that, if you implement them, they're going to work wonders for you. They really are. Okay, let's now move on to step number two. And step number two, just turning to the right page in the booklet so I can give you an example, is motivation. Now, for a lot of people, when they start on weight loss, they genuinely think day one's level of motivation is going to stick with them all the way through. And if you're looking to lose, 50 pounds or more, that's going to take you at least 3 to 6 to 9 months, well, not 3 months, sorry, 6 to 9 months plus to lose that weight, depending upon, where you are mentally, emotionally, and how well you can stick to something. But to think you are going to stay at a really high level of motivation for all that time is really for the birds. So what can we do to get ourselves operating at a level, doing the things we know we should be doing in order to get the results that we're looking for? Well, what we do is we create a goal. Now, for most people, what they will say is, yep, I want to lose some weight. Well, that's not good enough. And here's why I want to lose some weight is not good enough. Because when you're faced with the inevitable choice of, do you drink the alcohol, in Rachel's case, or do you eat the cake, the cheese, the biscuits, the chocolate, whatever it is for you, when you're faced with that choice, more often than not, there's a lot of emotion attached to that choice that's driving you to make that choice, to make you want to eat or drink that thing. So we need something on the other side of the scales to either balance it out, to slow you down and maybe stop you. And ideally, we need something on the other side of the scales that has got more weight to it, that's going to lead you in a different direction and cause you to do things differently from the way you've done them in the past. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we get very clear about how much weight we want to lose. And in Rachel's case, it was 50 pounds. Great, so we've now got a weight that we can actually work towards and do some planning around. But we need to go deeper than that. So for Rachel, I said, okay, 50 pounds, what does it actually mean for you? What are you going to get from that? And there are typically three areas as human beings that drive us in from a motivational point of view. How we look, our health, and our hobbies. And the biggest one out of those three that I have found over the last 15, 20 years of doing this, probably more than that actually, is how we look. And a lot of people think, well, that's a little bit vain, Eric, shouldn't it be about my health, getting my blood pressure down, getting my body fat percentage down, preventing the risk of heart disease? Shouldn't that be the main driver? Well, yes, it should be intellectually, but emotionally, it tends not to be. It tends to be how you look. And here's the magic. When you focus in on initially how you look, you automatically get the other two as well. Because when you start to look better, 9 times out of 10, if you're doing this holistically, you are going to improve your health and be better at your hobbies, whatever those hobbies may be, walking, cycling, swimming, whatever your hobby is. For me, for example, it's playing tennis. So I said, okay, Rachel, so what does losing 50 pounds mean to you in terms of a visual goal? She said, well, it would mean I can get back into my skinny jeans. Okay, fantastic. We took it a bit deeper than that. I said, okay, fine. We now need to not just say how much you want to lose, what do you want to wear. I would like you to know specifically, where are you wearing those jeans? Who's there when you're wearing those jeans? What event are you at? How do you feel? Is there anything going on in terms of noise, music happening there? Are there any particular smells? So what we were doing was creating this visual image of what was going on with Rachel wearing the skinny jeans. And I actually got her to write this down, as I do with all my clients, within the journal. So weight goes at the bottom, and she drew the image in there. And here are some examples of what other clients have done on my program. This, when done properly, will automatically guide you towards your goal, because When you're then faced with the choice of do I drink or do I eat the thing from the B column, you know what I said earlier, the stuff that's going to keep you overweight and make you fatter and heavier and unhealthier. If and when you're faced with that choice, your option is I want to lose weight, which one's going to win? It's always going to be the food or the drink that's going to win because it's got more emotional charge. But when you can create a goal like this, a goal card that's got some real energy attached to it that makes you want to do it, you are automatically directed in that direction of action. So you'll eat the way you know you need to eat. You'll do the exercises you know that you should be doing because you are automatically being guided by your subconscious mind. So you don't feel this resistance, you don't feel this battle of actually having to turn certain foods down. And you may have been in this position before where, let's say, for example, you've been in a car, you've been driving a car, you've got to a destination and you haven't really thought about how you've got there, but you've got there safely. It's kind of the same with this goal. When you've got a goal like this, suddenly you're not aware of all the chocolates and the crisps and the biscuits. It's not that you're trying to avoid them, it's just that you're now kind of on automatic pilot and doing things that are guiding you towards where you want to be. Really powerful exercise. Hopefully you've made some notes there, and please comment below if you want any additional help on this. So that's motivation. Okay, so that's step number 2. Step number 3 was getting Rachel to control her blood sugar levels, because look, as I said earlier, for a lot of women what they'll simply do is just cut calories and they'll continue eating, for example, simple carbohydrates. The problem with that is when you eat simple carbohydrates, sugary carbohydrates, you get a peak in your blood sugar levels, and then that's followed by a dip. And when you get that dip, that's when you start to crave the sugary types of food. So you're on this roller coaster going up and down all the time, and it becomes a real battle of will. And again, trying to lose 50 pounds over 6 to 9 months and just trying to tough it out with willpower and high levels of motivation, for most people it's not going to work. And if they do make it last for that long period of time, when they eventually get there, they're just frazzled and they crash and burn and they revert back to their old habits. So how did we address the blood sugar levels? Pretty simple. What I didn't do was say to Rachel, look, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Instead, we added things. We said, okay, what can we add to your meals that are going to help to stabilize your blood sugar levels? I'm not going to go into major detail here, otherwise the video goes on way too long. But basically I said, okay, whenever you eat a meal, be that breakfast, lunch or dinner, please make sure you've got some protein on your plate, some fat, healthy fat, and some form of a complex carbohydrate. When you combine those 3 things together, they will A, give you the greatest level of satiation. They'll keep you feeling fuller for far longer. 100%, just try it out. It will also help to control and balance your hormones. It will also help to stabilize your blood sugar levels. And when you do those 3 things in combination, your ability to be able to lose weight goes up by, I don't know what percentage, but huge when you can actually control your blood sugar levels. So that's step number 3, controlling your blood sugar levels. Step number 4, still related to food, is how did I get Rachel to deal with her unconscious eating? Something that I think, if you're honest, we've all struggled with from time to time. You suddenly find yourself stood peering into the fridge and looking to reach in there and grab a block of cheese. It might be an alcoholic drink, it might be, I don't know, a baguette, whatever it might be, but something that you know, if you start eating that, especially late at night, it's really not going to help you out. So how did we address Rachel's unconscious eating? How can you address your unconscious eating? Well, simple exercise, and it's based on this theory that I have, which is, why are we triggered to eat food? And basically a few reasons why we're triggered to eat food. I call it the HALT BES. Write that down, HALT BES, each letter standing for a particular trigger as to why we eat. The first one is hunger. Well, if you've done what I just said previously, combine proteins, fats and carbs, we should be able to knock hunger in the head. But the other ones are, the act as triggers are around feeling a bit angry, we'll eat, lonely, tired, bored, excited or stressed. Those are the triggers that we typically experience that then lead us to automatically, unconsciously finding ourselves peering into the fridge, which is not great. So in Rachel's case, it was boredom. So I'm pretty sure it was boredom. So we got her to, or she decided that she'd start reading a book in the evening. Now, I've got to say this. if you don't do the previous step, balancing out your blood sugar levels, and you do feel hungry, the idea of reading a book ain't going to work. The desire will just overcome you. So you've got to sort your eating out from that regard. And then when you are faced with, that's a blank screen there, when you are faced with the boredom factor, as in Rachel's case, she can then make that decision that, you know, I can read a book because I actually feel quite full. So that's how we dealt with the unconscious eating. Now, bearing in mind, this was a work in progress. Did it always work 100% for her? Of course it didn't, but it worked more often than enough to be able to help her to lose 57 pounds in weight. Now, before I dive in and share number 5 with you, just to let you know, if you want to kickstart your weight loss today with some additional support materials, below this video there is a link to a page. It'll take you to my Boost Weight Loss Assessment, answer a few simple questions, take you less than 3 minutes, and you get back a full-blown personalised report that will help you to kickstart your mindset, your eating, and your exercise. I say click on that at the end of this video. Okay, step number 5, exercise. Now, I mentioned it earlier, for a lot of people, they will typically jump into exercise. It might be walking, it might be going to a local gym, it might be joining an exercise class, something of that nature. And they start with good intention, as Rachel had done in the past, and then after a few days, a few weeks, the whole thing comes crashing down around their ears. How come? 9 times out of 10, it's because people are quite random in their exercise when they do it. I don't know what you're like. I mean, are you random or are you pretty dedicated? Comment below, are you a random exerciser? So, what I said to Rachel was, look, rather than talking about walking 10,000 steps a day or doing weights or doing some core stability work for her lower back issues, let's just put that to one side for a second. Let's first of all identify where you know specifically you can definitely have a protected 20 to 30 minutes on a daily basis. Just protected time where you know you're not going to be interrupted, you know, all things being equal. Obviously, if there's like a major emergency, then you are going to be interrupted. But that set to one side, when would that 20 to 30 minutes be? Now, in her case, it was first thing in the morning. Now, why is it important to establish this protected time? It's important because once we've established that, we can then start to introduce different activities into that time frame. In Rachel's case, it was walking, it was doing some light resistance training, it was also doing some core work for lower back. She'd been referred to me by physiotherapists for lower back pain. So as part of my program, I include Pilates, but I also, at the time, you know, showed her a few things she could do for her back as well. So this is important to understand because once you've got that protected time and you become consistent with it, we can then change what goes into that time frame. You know, it might be we do a bit more walking, it might be we do a bit more resistance training, but we know it's going to happen because that time has been allocated and it's protected. So that's step number 5. And then the final step, step number 6, a step that not many people take, and we took this step in week number 6. We just stopped and we reviewed what she'd done in the previous 5 weeks. So, you know, obviously we looked at her weight, that had come down, fantastic. We looked at what was working well and we decided, and she doubled down on that. And then we took a look at things that weren't working as well and made little tweaks to make that work better for the next 5 weeks going forwards. Now, here's a key thing to understand about this review process. Most people, when they've made progress, fail to recognize the progress they've made, fail to recognize the steps they've taken, fail to recognize the small wins they've had. And when you fail to recognize those things, it's very, very easy to have a week where you lose maybe less than you thought you're going to lose, or you lose nothing, or heaven forbid, you gain some weight and suddenly all the focus is on that negative thing or that blip. Forget about the fact you've lost 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds. The fact that you didn't lose what you said you're going to lose this week, suddenly that becomes a big focus and it all becomes about that. So having the ability to be able to go back and review things, see where your wins are, that can just help to encourage you to go, you know what, when these blips happen, I can just look back at all the good things I have done and I can continue to move forwards with a good degree of confidence. And the beauty of the review process is, and it works incredibly well for Rachel, you know, and all the clients I've worked with who have, you know, been successful, is that when they got to their final end goal weight, whatever that was, in Rachel's case £57, it never felt to her as if she had to take a massive step to begin with. It never felt to her that she was completely outside of her comfort zone. Why? Because we were doing this in incremental steps, step by step, putting those foundational pieces in place and then just doubling down on them and making little small tweaks as she went along. And when you approach weight loss in this manner, it makes it feel so much easier, rather than maybe what you've done in the past. If you're this sort of personality type, you just want to go at it like a bull in a china shop, and 9 times out of 10 what happens for most people that do that is they crash and burn. Not only do they crash and burn, they end up sometimes putting on way more weight than what they were when they first started. Now, if you've enjoyed this and you like what you're hearing, don't forget you've got the assessment below here that you can do, but also there's a link in the description if you want to accelerate it even quicker and book in for a free consultation with me to discuss your weight loss and how I may be able to help you. Click that link, book in for a call with me. It's just an exploratory call. We have a conversation, nothing to buy on the call, just say a conversation to see, and for me to ask you a few questions about where you're at, what you're looking to achieve, you to ask me a few questions about my program, what the investment levels are, and if we both think there's a possibility we could work together, we would then book a second call where we'd go into a lot more detail. I'd get more information, I'd present something to you, and then you could say yes or no. But that initial first call is just exploratory for us to find out a bit about each other and decide if there's a possibility we could work together. Again, that link is in the description below.